Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about version control and why you should absolutely love everything about it. So let's get into it. So the question in question was actually posted on a very old video I made, which was named "How do you unit test if your work how do you unit test if you work with stored procedures?" So the question was, or the response was basically, "Hi Frederick, you have reaffirmed all my fears about putting things in the database instead of source code. I'm thinking of migrating the service procedures at my job that we have in our project into the source code for the reasons that these exact reasons that you are explaining." And basically, what I tried to explain in this video was very simply that if you have stored procedures, what you've literally done is that you have moved business logic, because it is business logic, a procedure is logic, regardless of how this is something that you might not be, or like this, it can feel alien to you if you're a junior software developer. But guys, the thing that makes your system do what it does is not just the actual source code that you have written. It can be everything from a configuration file, it can be in this case it's a procedure, it's like next level stuff. What I'm saying is that your business logic, and that's basically what I'm saying in the video as well, it should be version controlled. Because when you are running your code, as you can imagine, if everything is stored in like a database, like all your logic, and you have, because usually the reason why you have these sorts of procedures is so that someone can edit them kind of on the fly without you having to recompile the project or things like that. Because if it's not in in the source code, that's usually at the very least the reason why you want to have it. And that, as you can imagine, that can break anything at literally any second, like whenever. Like you can make the tiniest change at any moment and it could break the feature or do anything, something like that. Now this is like, I'm not trying to bash talk having stored procedures. There are absolutely use cases for when this is useful, but you should, and I also say that in the video, if you are doing that sort of thing, you really have to go pretty heavy on like the BDD or something like doing testing production sort of stuff like that. Not necessarily testing production, but I hope that you're getting what I'm saying. You have to go really heavy on the testing and find some way of mitigating the fact that your logic can literally change like that. Because storing the business logic without a version control system or like a reviewing process, it is literally the same thing as you just having like the good old days when you could SSH into a live environment for your tiny little website in PHP and just change a few lines when you felt like it in production, and that was the process, right? Yeah, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. And so what I'm trying, like the thing I tried to explain to this person that I was talking to is basically that you should really get used to, if at all possible, to version control everything. Not necessarily everything that is how to put this, not everything that is related to the business logic, but you need a master copy that where everything else is derived from. I'll give you a very concrete example of this. So stored procedures as an example, it's kind of tricky to version control that. You can do it. It would not be as hard as you might think. You would have to have something similar to, like, you could have an event system where, well, let's say that someone pushes new procedures to the database, alright, and you can export that in some nice fashion. Or maybe you could do it the reverse, which would be much nicer. You actually have the master copy of the procedure in the version control system, and it has to go to version control before you go to production with it. That takes a little bit longer, but at the very least, and that's the whole point of it, you can roll back. If something goes wrong, you can roll back, and you can always diff things, and you can see that, okay, you changed these parts, which makes the likelihood of you having to I don't know, having a serious issue on your hands in production. It's much lower. My favorite example of when this is very useful is when you're working with translations. Now this is a very hot tip that I hope that you will take to heart in every single company you ever go to. If you are ever involved in this discussion, win it for everybody at that company. You have to have the English or whatever language you have as the default. Like pick one standard language. It might be Swedish, Danish, I don't know, whatever, and create a master version of the translations and put that in source together with your source or in some other Git repository or like anything that has version control. And then, because you might not want to version control every derived well, if you're going to translate to 50 languages, you might not need to version control every single one of those. But the master copy, you should always have version control. And the reason being very simply that whenever you're changing values or you're updating things or adding new keys and new translations, you can version control that part, and then you can export that to like an external translation system. And so what this does is that it acts as your default, it acts as your template. And that is very powerful, because by just having that process, you always have, as I said, you have the option of rolling back, and you can always make sure that nobody makes like a breaking change without it going through proper testing and like all of these things that we kind of do, like unit testing and like integration testing, like this whole CI pipeline, that's there for this exact reason. But if you're storing things in the database with you're having your business logic like somewhere that is not part of that pipeline, you are running a very big risk. So it's really good to always version control. I would even go as far as to say this. I wish some designers have gotten wind of this, and I think that everybody should do this. Like literally everybody. I wish business people would do it. Like I wish everybody would do it. It is better for you to create something, like it doesn't matter if it's a legal document, a book, or if it's like a design, whatever it is. Create that thing, present it as is, and you make that version 1. And then you copy that thing. You don't change the existing thing. You copy it, create a new version, update that, and show that and call that version 2. And you repeat that process. You don't even have to use Git or Mercurial, anything of that advanced stuff. You can literally do that on your desktop. Just do it. Because it's a lot cheaper for you to keep things around that you did before than it is to forever remove it by updating something you only have one copy of. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, use version control for all the things all the time. Version control literally every single thing that you could possibly imagine, and then back it up a million times over. Git is very complex, I'm very sorry to say, but if it wasn't so complex, there are other systems out there for people who are not software developers. Make sure that you are investing in this, and make sure that whenever you're dealing with things that are related to your business logic, that you have at the very least a master copy in your source control system, so that you can version changes to the master copy. And as an example, translation is a good concrete time when you want to have one language master file that contains all the logic and works as the absolute default to all the other stuff that people might be doing in external systems. Stored procedures, similar sort of thing. Start with one working base procedure, and if that thing changes drastically, send it out to production, run it, see if it works, and then after a little while take a snapshot of that thing and now make that the new master copy. Have a great day.